Today I'm fishing at the mouth of the Mersey Estuary. Bass Strait's out to my left about 1 kilometre. Opposite me is the East Devonport rock wall, and up to the right is where the Spirit of Tasmania ferries and the Sea Road ships and everything are in the port. This is the narrow point here between the green and the orange channel markers. The channel, it's about 120 metres between the poles. It's because it's a dredged channel. Instead of being only 6 or 7 metres deep in the middle, it goes down to as far as 18 to 20 metres deep at high tide. So today, fishing at the mouth of the Mersey, I'm testing a new rod from Nobi. The model is called the Keen Force. This particular one is the 9'6". It uses I think it's a Torre blank. The model here is MBK F96M, M for medium, and the lure weight, casting weight, is 7 to 35 grams. Today I've got my Twin Power 3000. It's a C3000 XG, so it's a high speed 3000 reel. Does about 80 centimetres per handle turn. It's really good for actually jigging down deep with small lures. To start off with, I'm going to be using one of my favourite jigs, which is the Jigging Pro 30 gram tungsten. With 2 small hooks on the head and a small hook on the tail. The last few times I fished here, all I've caught a small flathead, so I'm expecting to get flathead today, but what I want to do is test out this rod, and I'm also testing out the polarized lens that I've got on my GoPro camera. Where the pole is to the right there, about 10 metres out from it is where the drop off of the dredge channel is. So the bottom of the river used to be like this, cobbles and stones all the way across, but they dredge it to make it deep enough for large ships such as the Spirit of Tasmania ferries and the Sea Road ships to come in and out. And so instead of being 6 or 7 metres deep in the middle, it's actually 18 to 20 metres, and sometimes slightly over 20 metres deep when it's a really high tide. It's an outgoing tide at the moment. It's just on 2:30 p.m. Low tide today is at 4, so we've got about an hour and a half until low tide. But alright, so I'm ready to start fishing. I'm using the Keen Force 96M, so it's a 9'6" rod. It's actually really lightweight. It's a rod that will sell retails for under $100. Yet it's 9'6". It's really lightweight. It's actually really well made, and it casts beautifully. So just as an example, I'm aiming at the orange channel marker over there. I want to get the lure, if I can, 80 metres or more over there. So I want to get it over there to the other side of the channel, which is about 10 to 15 metres this side of the orange channel marker over there. And then I want the lure to hit the bottom down there, and then I jig it as the current carries it, in this case from right to left. I'll be jigging it along the bottom over there, picking up flathead, gurnard, and if I'm lucky there might be mackerel, or even the occasional salmon, although salmon have been very scarce lately. With this very cold fine weather we've had, the salmon seem to be staying offshore rather than coming inshore. Anyway, let's give it a shot. There's a very slight breeze coming left to right. Yeah, that was probably about 70 metres, so as always, I need to warm up. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually holding my rod up high like this. It's hard to see. Yep, so I'm holding my rod up high whilst the lure is sinking, because I don't want the line to lay down on the water. I want the line, if possible, to go vertically, like down vertically into the water, so the lure drops vertically down. And by holding the rod up, I reduce the amount of drag that's on the line. Okay, the lure just hit the bottom then. I can tell because the line just went a bit slack. So just tighten up the line now. Yep, that's on the bottom. And now I'm jigging. So what I'm looking for here are flathead and gurnard, and any other fish for that matter, that are laying down near the bottom, waiting for bait fish being swept out with the tide. So what I'm doing here is yep, got one. Yes, how's that? First cast, and I've hooked up. Oh, he got off. Damn it. Oh, God. First cast and I hooked up, but it got off. Oh, I think I might have hooked my leader or something now. But that was a decent sized fish. Yeah, it definitely felt more like a gurnard or possibly even a salmon rather than a flathead. I'm just going to check the lure and check the hooks. I could have had my drag a little bit tighter, but problem is then if I get a big fish and when I strike and they run, I can break this light braid. It's only 10-pound braid. So what I'm going to do is just check my hooks. That was definitely a decent sized fish though. Okay, I did sharpen these just before coming down to the water. I used this jig the other day with a different rod here. I caught a 14 flathead in about 90 minutes. Most of them were undersized, but it was good fun nevertheless. And I wasn't fishing for food, I was fishing for fun. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just tighten up my drag just a touch and give it another shot. That's another really good cast. Yep. Landed about 20 meters this side of the orange channel marker. Again, I'm holding the rod up like that vertically so that the line stays up off the water as the lure sinks, and I can feel the tension on the line as the lure is sinking, and then I can tell when it's actually hitting the bottom because suddenly it just loses a bit of tension. I know that this jig takes about 11 seconds to hit the bottom in the water over there. And sometimes I'll actually get a fish taking it on the drop. So I always count as it's sinking so that I know when it should be on the bottom, and if it stops sinking sooner, then I can wind in the slack and tighten up and hopefully hook a fish. Now what I'm going to do, now that the line's a bit straighter, I'm actually opening my bail arm after each set of jigs so that I can actually get the lure to drop more vertically down. I don't want the lure like dragging down towards me as it sinks. I want it to actually drop vertically down to stay on the other side of the channel as long as possible. After a boat goes like that, it sometimes scatters the fish for a little bit, and they can take a few minutes to start feeding again, particularly when it's really clear skies and calm water like it is today. I mean, at the moment it's about 8 degrees here. We've had really unusually cold and frosty weather for Devonport. Devonport tends to be more of a Mediterranean type of climate. Unlike most of Tasmania, it tends to be milder in the summer, certainly than the inland towns nearby, and milder in the winter. So we get fewer frosts and also fewer really cold days. Plus in the summer it tends to be a lot milder in the day. I've got a slight breeze coming over my left shoulder, so I can get it about 90 meters at the moment. Yep, that landed almost exactly in line with the orange channel marker. So my lure now is a 30-gram tungsten lure, and it's sinking almost vertically down at the moment. I'm holding the rod up high so that the line is being pulled through the air as the lure sinks instead of being pulled over the water. That way the lure sinks faster and more vertically. Okay, just hit the bottom then. So now I actually prefer, because I like to jig left-handed, I actually prefer to have the rod to my right like this. And what I'm doing is jigging it 4 or 5 times, and then the current is carrying it from right to left. And then I'm waiting just then, as the line goes slack, it hits the bottom. And then I'm jigging it again. And as the line gets straighter between me and the jig, because to start off with it's laying on the top of the water and then dropping almost vertically down. But the longer I'm jigging, the straighter and straighter the line will get between the tip of the rod and the lure. And so what I'm also doing is, when the line's a bit tighter like now, I actually open up my bail arm to give myself about 3 or 4 meters of slack line, so the lure again is sinking more vertically down without tension on the line. So that's what that is. I open up the bail arm, let it sink, and then close the bail arm and start jigging again. So there, it's only about 3 meters is all I need to get. Oh, that was a fish, and I didn't hook it. Okay, now, because the channel drops off about 10 meters in front of me, the channel drops off, and the drop off is almost vertical, so it's like a cliff of cobbles. And if I was to keep jigging and jigging until the lure is down on the bottom only 20 meters out from me, I'd be dragging my braid through the cobbles on the drop off, and it's very easy to get your lure stuck on the edge of the drop off and to break off. So to avoid damaging the line and to avoid losing the lure, once I'm about 40 meters away from me, so 30 meters beyond the drop off, then I just start winding the lure in rather than jigging and jigging and jigging it and then bringing my line up through the rocks. When it's high tide and I'm standing up at the top of the cobbles there, I'll actually jig until I'm about 50 meters away from where I'm standing, because of the extra distance between here and the top of the cobbles. So once my lure is about 50 meters from me, then I'll start bringing it up to the surface again, so I don't get stuck on the drop off and don't drag my braid through the rocks. Okay, so that's another good long cast. This time I'm about 20 meters to the left. I'm in line with my rod there, about 20 meters to the left of the orange channel marker. Just waiting for the lure to hit the bottom. Yep, just hit the bottom then, so it took about 11 seconds. And now I'll start jigging again. Alright, I've finally hooked up solidly. And it feels like actually not a bad sized fish. I don't know what it is. Likely to be a flathead. Although it actually feels more like a barracuda. Hopefully I don't get bitten off, because with this small lure and the light line, if the line even touches the tooth of the barracuda, it'll cut it. So I'm pulling, yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, so what I'm doing, because I don't want to get the fish stuck on the drop off, I'm holding the rod up high and lifting it up vertically and winding down. Otherwise, if the fish gets over the drop off, the line can go through the cobbles and can damage your line even if it doesn't break it straight away. Actually, it might be a gurnard. Definitely doesn't. Oh no, it's a sideways flathead. That's why it felt so big. So it's a little flathead, about 25 centimeters, but he's coming in sideways. There we go. Let's have a look. Right. So he would have grabbed the lure grabbed at the lure, and I've just managed to hook him in the side, and so he felt like he was about a kilo, when in fact he's probably only about 100 grams. That's what coming in sideways does. So I'm about 10 meters to the right of the orange channel marker and about 20 meters this side of it, which is a good spot to land the lure. And I've just got to tighten it up because I lost sight of my line for a moment. I just want to make sure I know when it hits the bottom. There we go, just hit the bottom then. Oh, did I get it? I don't think so. That was definitely a hit. I didn't hook it. So the drag then was just because I was pulling the lure fast against the current, against the water. No, got it this time. Yep, oh, I think so. Yep, I can feel it kicking. The first time I had a little fish, but it got off. And then that time I actually managed to hook it. So either the same fish came and had another go at it, or more likely another fish. Because these little flathead, if they're 20 to 25 centimeters, they're usually lots of them together. So you can't keep them. So mind you, I throw back practically every fish I catch anyway, but they're fun to catch when there's nothing else happening. There we go. Oh, he's not even 20 centimeters. He's for, oh yeah. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's probably just about 22 centimeters, I'd say, just over 20 centimeters. So you can see he's got the tail hook through the bottom jaw like that, and I can just grab the hook like this and then drop him off the hook. Whoop, whoop. In his excitement to get away, he actually swam out of the water. There he goes. He's back. He'll be fine. Yeah, I try not to handle them. Any kind of fish I catch, I try to handle them as little as possible. It maximises their chance of survival, and I try to keep them out of the water as little as possible as well. So I try to keep them in the water while I'm unhooking them. Anyway, that was good. Let's give it another shot, see if I can get another one over there. Looks like they might have arrived. So when I first got here, I hooked something, but I don't know what it was. It got off. But now I'm getting hits just about every cast, and so I think that flathead have been coming down with the tide and they're arrived. And so I should get a few fish in the next half hour or so. Okay, so the current's dragging the line now. It's harder for me to tell when the lure hits the bottom when the current's dragging the line like that, because it just keeps dragging it. Yep. Another little fish. So that one was only mid-channel, so about halfway between the furthest extent I can cast and me. And he got it as the lure was just drifting downstream of me, and the current was just dragging it along the bottom. And I hooked up another fish. So it's like 2 little flathead and 2 casts. So yep, they've definitely arrived. There we go. Let's see if we can see him in the camera. Where is he? There he is. Yep, about the same size as the other one. This time though, he's actually hooked in the mouth on the head hooks. So the previous flathead grabbed the tail end of the lure. So he must have been like swimming after it and then grabbed it by the end of the lure. Whereas this one, I would say he ambushed the lure and grabbed it by the head, which is normally when most fish will, when they're eating a little bait fish like this, they'll actually grab it by the head and swallow it head first. Fortunately, he's only got one hook in his mouth. It should be fairly easy to dehook. Just turn the hook upside down like that. There he goes. Whoop. Well, I've been pretty happy with this rod so far. It's a little bit softer than more expensive rods. It's obviously a cheaper graphite blank, since this rod sells for under $100, and most of the rods I use sell for more than $200. But you know, for the price, I think the quality of the rod is excellent, and the performance is perfectly good. So I think this would be a really good rod for people who want to get into doing jigging, light jigging, using jigs from like 5 grams up to 35 grams. And with the right balance reel and line, in this case the 3000 reel and 10-pound braid, I can cast my little 30-gram jig more than 80 metres, which would be more than adequate for most people's fishing circumstances. Yep. Yeah, the whole of the cobble beach here is now in the shade, and I can really feel my ears and toes and fingers getting cold. So once I think once I retrieve this particular lure cast, I'll call it a day. Oh, I decided to have a couple more casts just back down here before leaving, and I missed a fish on the previous cast, and then this cast I just hooked one almost as soon as I started jigging. So I was casting out towards that red pole over there, and did 5 jigs, let it drop, and then picked it up, and straight away I got a hit. It feels like another little flathead. It comes up to the surface, there we go. Yeah, I just don't want it to go dropping down over the drop off, although with these small fish you can control them pretty well. There we go, just another little maybe 25 centimetre. Yeah, actually he might, yeah, probably just on 30 centimetres this one, so nearly big enough to be keepable in lots of places. In Tasmania at the moment, this is a sand flathead, and at Tasmania at the moment the minimum length for these is 40 centimetres. Just because there have been too many small ones being killed and not enough getting big. Anyway, I'll release the hook and let him go. Okay, very next cast, and this time after about 15 jigs, so 3 sets of 5, and then on the 4th set of 5 jigs I hooked up again. So it's another fish of about the same size, I guess. I've got to watch out here because it's a harbour and there's a lot of recreational fishermen coming out of here. You've got to be careful here because I'm casting the other side of the channel. If I'm not careful, boats can cut your line, so you don't want that to happen. So generally speaking, when the boat like that's coming in and my line's on the other side of the channel, I just wind it in, wait for the boat to pass, and then cast it out again. Okay, that's another flathead of about the same size. It looks so similar. It looks like it could almost be the other one. Actually, this one's slightly larger. This one is probably, yeah, this one's closer to 35 centimetres. So it's a nice little flathead. I'll get my forceps out and release him. Okay, so what I'm doing is getting the hook out of the mouth, like so. And then releasing the fish like that. So I didn't have to touch it, and it was only out of the water for a few seconds. So that means its survivability chances are much higher.